Hello and welcome to a project that's been ongoing since the early 1990s, so naturally you're going to come in the middle. What this is some daily updates that I recorded on my mobile phone just to capture what I was up to. There are other films which follow a theme or follow a project all the way through, so this is literally me walking around the shed talking to myself, holding the phone out. So I hope you enjoy it. More than anything, I appreciate the comments, and on this one in particular, the format. Put some subtitles in because this is some months ago, and I've learnt a fair amount since. So today's job's been building these two frames that sit underneath the floor that raise the body a little bit above the chassis, and then that gives a really solid foundation. So I can now start to coordinate all the other bits and bobs above it. It was the very beginning of May when the tail went on. It's now the very end of June. So it's the first proper work day in a long time. But it does feel like a bit of progress. I reached the point where I needed the foundation solid to then get the body in position so I can then check everything going up. And I'm happy this is the final position for the body. Any further back, run out of finger room to the steering column. There's bags of knee room now. Billy visiting confirmed that. That day we worked out having the scuttle up at the back, sloping down worked well. And it's giving a nice slopey bonnet line. So when it was first built, the bonnet was almost level and it looked very wrong. It's like the tail looked a bit low. So that should look a lot better. So I can now work on the front, getting the radiator mounted and things like that. So things I've got to change still is I need to cut even more floor away because legs go down into this footwell here. So there's the depth of the chassis and that piece of wood, which is quite substantial. In terms of how deep the footwell is, so not to hit the back of calves and things. Yeah, I like the carbs sitting out that side. There's silly little jobs like finding the right size bolts. So this is a mini radiator, not Reliant. I thought these were an Imperial size, but turned out to be M6. And then tracked down some really little ones. Which are shorter than I had, and then sort out my nut and bolt storage again and all the rest of it. So I can now make a start on that. Very happy with the frame. The body will be much better supported than it was with these quite substantial beams going backwards and forwards and resting down there on the cross member. The body's going to go on a different chassis to mine, so it might need unscrewing and adjusting and all the rest of it. But it's a good position to move forward from here. Today's Tuesday, yesterday, Monday, I got this painted, but I also cut this side to a slope, so the floor falls away down into the footwell. It's a bit of a fiddle with the fuel hose at the back, so that needed moving as well. And then the floor's cut a long way further back this side. I've cut a huge hole in the side here. However, this means that there's now plenty of foot space. I got this done quite quickly. The other cut I've made is more space around the master cylinder. And my Bad Obsession Motorsport mug is out to remind me just to get on with it if I'm going to get it done. So I'm inspired by their skill and ambition, but also reminded that if you don't compromise and just get on with it, these things can drift. So I'm keen to get this body tub to Billy in Bristol. Keen to get on with Edwards, and I'm keen to get another body on this one, so it's not hopefully, you know, my last chance, and this is the masterpiece. But just getting them done. So I've got about an hour and a half today, and made a little bit of softwood to continue the floor. Cut a bit of the old floor to go down the slope, and they'll probably end up on the car. I'll trim that round. It's occurred to me that I keep clamping this down, so really these beams coming forward should hook under this metal. So I need to make something to do that. I want to minimise the number of bolts holding body to chassis to make it really easy to get the body on and off, and minimise the number of fuel pipe joins and electrical joints. In my ideal world, you can take this body off, pop another one on in moments, so you kind of have 2 runs at the same event with the same chassis, but looking like a different car. That'd be quite cute. So that's just a bit of hardboard templated. This will be attached to the engine subframe and is the start of the footwell. Got a spanner on that, bent it out the way, put a wedge in, hammered it, lent on it. That's out the way. It'll be cut next time the body's off, but I've been able to confirm that that's roughly where the footrest goes for the clutch. So this is a temporary bit of floor for the accelerator brake pedal. No regrets on these cuts, which is good. Morning after. So not much progress, but some, which is good. The other thing I've done, so I'm enjoying this tripod. I'm trying to film this properly. Can get in all sorts of places, but I've taken the tail off. I was worried about it getting damaged because the body's on, off at the moment, and it's also wet, and it's nice being able to shut the door without having to roll the car forward. Hopefully tomorrow, another bit of progress. Various things I can move forward on now. So I was looking at the dashboard, wondering whether it would lean a little rather than upright, but you know, I can make that decision and template. I can start to build either a footrest that hinges out the way to get to the battery, or some box that's removable, so the passenger can sit in, have their feet up. I've seen modern kit cars have straps over the prop shaft in case it breaks free, which is a sensible idea. I think they'll be attached to the engine frame back to the chassis crossmember separate from the body, which will go on and off. So it's thinking through what gets attached to what, so it's really easy to pull the car apart, put it together again if something needs fixing. So consecutive days progress is really nice. So we had a nice bright sunny day, so I rolled it out early even though I was doing other things, and I'd sit here with a cup of tea pondering how to do the dashboard and the scuttle. And when I came to it, a few bits needed throwing away and redoing, but it came together very quickly, so it's another very productive evening. So the first thing is a little wedge here just to finish off where the body will drop down to meet the slopey floor. And then I had a twisty old bit of floorboard that hadn't been used because it was twisty, which I cut, that fits the aluminium screwed in with the original holes and hinges, and at the moment it's just a screw through. I've got these captive nuts that will fit into the underside of the plywood, and then either that or maybe a hex head depending on how far up this opens, so it'd be easy to take that off again. And then there's a frame inside which screws to the aluminium through the original holes again, little corner braces. I've made it kind of a pretty shape. It'll get rounded over and dashboard fitted round. Has to be clamped at the moment, doesn't fit that well. Might be able to finesse it a bit, but sort of an over centre latch would do it. And then up it flips for access. So there'll be the dashboard with the instrument switches, lots of wiring, and everything in the warm and dry. Easy to get into it. So that's a good lump of progress just in a day. that's not going to take much to sort of round over a few rough edges and paint, and then that's done, another component done. So the last film was Thursday, it's now Sunday, and after half hours here and there templating, I've got a dashboard that I'm happy with. In terms of the sequence, the bonnet line will be defined by this height as well as this height. This height I can still vary, but to get the angle I wanted the scuttle to slope down a little bit more. I chopped this strip off the bottom of that wonky floorboard to drop this lower, so this now overlaps much more here. The little captive nuts went in quickly and easily, so I'm going to do a lot more of that. I like that, not having to grub around underneath, so it just goes straight in. While the board was off, I notched it round so it sits flat. The other side, this piece is raised quite significantly. Even this side, it's up quite a bit and it drops, which you need to remember later with getting the thing to fit properly. There was a lot around and around with what to do with these triangles, whether I blocked them in with something on this structure. But I decided in the end that if that curve was gentle and it was leaning in, I liked it. When it's vertical, it looked terrible with this gap too short, and this was right up to the edge. It just looked a big slab, but as soon as it was leaning, it looked so much better that I forgave it the gap. So that's what I've ended up with. So here's what it looks around like the other side. I've got a little rounded bottom edge. I've got a little kink, the same as I had in the original one, but the ends are quite different. To get this to fit well, as well as little notch and raising that up, I had to adjust these angles slightly. And something else I had to change is because this had moved up, it came into the curve, so I had to plane the top edges of these off. So it's been quite a lot of little bits of faff and fiddle, but it's coming together and it opens and shuts nicely, and I'm happy with the shape of the dashboard, and it's progressing. It's so much nicer with the dashboard in. No progress today, but I've got a few minutes to do a video. So it's Thursday morning. Didn't like the dashboard green, but I've gone this urban slate, which I do like, and it's not a bad finish for a couple of coats of green, a couple of coats of grey. Usually it's matte garden paint. Made this bracket to support the steering column, and the steering column's higher than it was, so it was just here, but it's now notched up, and then that's bolted through to above the dashboard. It's been a fiddle getting this wedge the right angle, and these bolts go in at a very slight angle. These holes were here holding the original dash. Probably going to put some captive nuts in. That'll be the next job. The dashboard's got a slight bow that way, so it gets clamped in. This black piece isn't quite straight, so there's a lot of things to finesse. Trying to think through how to stop this moving side to side, and come up with various schemes with blocks of wood that wrap round, and I haven't really made my mind up. The obvious thing is metal bracket off that bolt attached to the top here, which I'll probably do. The interesting thing really is, as the angle of the steering has had to go up, run into all sorts of problems. So it's getting very tight here. So this is the tube that the steering wheel's got levers to adjust the ignition and the mixture that run down the middle of the steering column and out the other end. Not on my car at the moment, but that gets very close. Could cut that off. We'll see what it is on Billy's car. But the other thing is, as this angle has increased and I've put more washers in, can't get a long enough bolt in from above with the clearance, can't get a long enough bolt in from below. So this is one that's not quite long enough, so I'm going to need to get one that's a little bit longer. So I end up needing a custom bolt if the angle, just because the angle's changed a little bit. If the steering wedge was different and it came higher, there'd obviously be more space underneath. So I don't know at what point I'll cut that, remake it, or there'll be a special bolt, or there'll be a piece that goes over the top welded on, or I don't know what. But it shows how this make it up as you go along method, you can end up with a tiny change and then a cascade of quite major stuff that needs to be revised. It's becoming more and more a car day by day, just a little half hour here and there.